Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Thursday, and all of our guests today, including Farhan, standing by, brought to you by our poll question sponsor, the Waddling Dog. Farhan Lalji joining us now from TSN. Farhan, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I had a refreshing change to my day today. Rather than talking to Henderson, I got to talk to one Quinn Taylor. I didn't realize it was Bring Your Kid to Work Day. That's awesome.
Yeah, he comes here every Thursday, and today he's handling your segment because you're so easy to deal with. We thought this was a good way to break him
Wouldn't
in.
go that
so
far.
It's a compliment to you, Farhan.
Well, it's about time you had a professional in the building there.
Yeah, Well, you got that right. Okay, you're a coach. You've been a coach.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the first segment. I know the sport you've coached has been football, but in regards to hockey, are you okay with NHL coaches taking part in handshake lines?
Look, I'm mixed about it. First of all, like philosophically, yes, right? I mean, they're part of the game, they're part of the team, they're part of the narrative, all of that. But I also appreciate and respect the sentiment that Paul Maurice had, right? There's so much in the way of support staff that the other players don't necessarily know that it does elongate the process, especially if you're the team on the other end and you've lost, right? And the other team's about to celebrate and things like that. So I kind of get it, right? Like if you kind of left the support staff away, maybe there's kind of a happy median there. I don't know, but at the same time, I appreciate moments like Pete DeBoer, and at the end of that series against Winnipeg, him being able to hug Mark Scheifele and tell him your father would have been proud of you, right? So that moment, that opportunity is also lost. So I don't know that there's a wrong answer, right? I think when certain sports present their championship trophy and it goes right to the owner, I think that's wrong.
Yes.
But in terms of this, I don't know that there's necessarily a wrong answer here. I get both sides of it.
Yeah, my problem with it is the timing of I guess if you want to call it a lecture from Paul Maurice towards Rod Brindamore.
Why aren't you supposed to say that before the game and then you're assuming you're going to win, right? Like, there's no good time for him to say that. It's just, I'm going to come over to your bench and I'm going to shake your hand because I don't want to go through around it. So I get it. Like, it's awkward television because it was clear Brindamore wanted to go out and do that. But, I'm sure at some point there's going to be a meeting in the offseason about how to handle it, right? So much different about NHL celebrations. Think about baseball, right? Where they basically pop champagne for everything, including making the wild card, right? Like, as opposed to the NHL where they don't want to touch the trophy. And so I don't know if they'll have a protocol, but who knows? I get it, and I'm sure every coach is going to have their own preference here.
It's good for talk shows, Farhan. That's all we care about.
So all we care about is content.
Good content.
Forget about the handshake thing. Florida's third straight trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. When I look at the Canucks, Farhan, and I look at Florida and I see how far they are behind, how much work they got to do. Look, the Canucks are out of their pro scouting meetings. June is around the corner. You brace yourself for some changes and brace yourself for some big moves from the Canucks. I can't see anything otherwise. They got to get going here, and the time is around the corner.
Yeah, Rick, they have to, and they're so far away, right? Like when you look at the depth of that Florida team and just how they're built back to front, and when you have experience, that just adds so much to it, and then it makes it so much easier to build, right? Like the Canucks are really at a Jim Benning stage from, remember the year that he had to give all those guys 4-year contracts? And I think there were 7 4-year contracts given out at free agency, and 4 of them were by the Canucks, and they were all marginal players, right? And I remember talking to a Canuck executive in the parking lot of Rogers Arena that day, and him telling me, we had to. Like, we had no choice. We weren't getting these guys without that. And they're back in that circle again. And, you've heard reporting about how the drama that happened this year and the Quinn Hughes situation and everything like that, that's going to make it difficult for the Canucks to be able to get guys to sign as free agents, to waive their no-trade clauses, all of it. So when you're Florida and you've got the benefits of winning and taxes and sun, it becomes easier to build when you get to this point, right? Like, certainly there would have been a point for Florida where it was difficult because they were a perennial loser, but now you add all the good stuff on top of winning, and the Canucks are so far away from that. So, whether we know their needs at center, will they have to take away from the back end or the wing to add to the solution at center? All of that, it's it's going to feel like a game of whack-a-mole this summer, and we'll see if they can even wind up having one more whack down than pops up by the time we get to September.
There is winning, though. It's just not in Vancouver. It's in Abbotsford.
Awesome stuff, isn't it?
Hey, Texas tonight, Gallardi versus Aquilini. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. You were out there covering practice yesterday. But, I mean, the great thing with the Canucks, Manny Malhotra has done just a fabulous job down in Abbey.
Yeah, man, he's been fantastic. And you hear the messaging post game, and like I was watching one of the clips and just seeing how the players were locked on him, right? And his message is getting across. And we don't say this often because the organization has done such a poor job of development, and some of that has been because of how they've drafted, right? They haven't put enough into the system because they're always trying to play for now. But all of that said, with the collection of players that Manny's had this year, this team is finding ways to win. They're getting production from players this organization needs to produce. They've resuscitated Artur Shilov's value. Like there's so much positive that's gone on there, and hopefully the organization can ride the wave and get into a final, right? Because you don't get to these points often. I think what's it been 10 years since the Canucks have done this, and certainly not the Abbotsford version. So it's a really good story, and it's nice the crowds are starting to come out in Abbotsford and pay attention.
Talking with Farhan Lalji, BC Lions play their second and final preseason game Friday in Edmonton. Any idea? And he only took 4 snaps, I believe, over in Vancouver Island. Any idea how much Nathan Rourke is going to play?
I think he'll play somewhere between a quarter and a half, right? Just depending on how it goes. If the first quarter is good, he probably doesn't see a ton of second quarter time, and vice versa. But yeah, they want to get him going. They knew that in one of these 2 games they needed him to play. So I would expect that you're going to see the starting unit, right? Like as many starters that are available on the offensive side of the ball, especially, will play in this game. I don't know about Anu Una, the right guard, or Dejon Allen, the right tackle. I think those guys might take a little bit more time to get going. But, in terms of the starting receiving core, we're going to see James Butler. We're going to see that entire group. So I'm looking forward to seeing it because, there's been some areas they've needed upgrade. We'll see what it looks like against, and this is going to be kind of the best version of a preseason game because it'll be both teams' best groups, right? Whereas usually teams put their best group on the field at home and not necessarily away. The Lions didn't do that because of how early that first preseason game came in Victoria, right? They wanted to give those guys a little more runway. So now you're going to see the rare situation where the best of Edmonton and the best of BC, for the most part, will play for at least a short period of time, and it'll be a week 1 preview. Whereas, you look at Calgary and what they did to Edmonton last week. Edmonton didn't have anybody, right? Whereas Calgary played their starters at home. It was a lot different measuring stick as opposed to what this one will look like.
Is Aaron Rodgers going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers? And they're talking about that signing maybe coming in early September.
It's ridiculous, right? The amount of drama and attention and theater around this player constantly. And look, I don't know what he's dealing with family-wise, but I'm sorry, when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, I'm just preconditioned to rolling my eyes a little bit, right? Because of his process and what he needs to go through. And, is it worth it if you're Pittsburgh? I know you don't want Mason Rudolph to be your quarterback, but I'm telling you, to quote Rick Dollywall, I'm telling you, Aaron Rodgers is going to show up and half that locker room is going to not be interested in him. They're going to be disappointed. It's not going to be good for that room to begin with because they'll know he's not all in, because all in to them means 10, 11 months. All into Aaron Rodgers might mean 8, and that's just not good enough in this sport. They're going to be behind from a chemistry standpoint. They're going to be behind in terms of the offense, all of it. It's not a good situation, and it's unfortunate that an organization feels desperate enough to let this player dictate terms because at this age, he's just not worth it.
And yet, one way or the other, we'll all watch. We all watch you every Thursday on this show. Thanks for this, Farhan.
Begrudgingly.
All right. Quinn, well done, buddy.
Segment's not over, Farhan. Thanks for this. Appreciate it.